What if everything you've been praised for, your grades, your good behavior, your ability to follow the rules, is the very thing that's killing your soul? You've played the game well. You did what they told you. You learned to sit still, raise your hand, take notes, pass tests, follow orders. You became efficient, polite, productive. But somewhere along the way, you lost something. Or maybe you were never allowed to find it. That fire, that voice, that pulse of truth that says, "This is who I am." Modern education didn't kill your intelligence. It killed your instinct. It didn't erase your potential. It buried your presence. It didn't silence your voice. It trained you to speak with someone else's. And now, here you are, capable, connected, competent, but cut off from your soul. You know how to reply, but not how to reflect. You know how to deliver, but not how to decide what you want to deliver. You've been trained to function, but you were never shown how to feel. Carl Jung saw this decades ago. He warned that modern society, especially education, would overemphasize the persona and neglect the self. The persona is the mask you wear to fit in. The self is who you really are beneath it. But if you're only ever taught how to perform, and never how to turn inward, then the mask becomes your identity, and you become a stranger to yourself. Let's not sugarcoat it. You were programmed to be impressive, not introspective. You learned how to make things look right on the outside. You never learned how to ask if it feels right on the inside. You were taught to color inside the lines, but never to question who drew them. Think back. Remember the first time you had an idea that didn't fit the lesson plan. Did you feel bold? Or did you shrink? Did you express it? Or did you edit yourself to stay safe? You were told what to think, but not how to think. You were graded on how well you memorized, not on how deeply you understood. And so your soul, that living, breathing center of who you are, went unnoticed, unfed, unseen. And now, you feel it. You feel the restlessness after a full day of doing everything right. You feel the emptiness behind the perfect resume. You feel the ache of a life that looks fine on paper, but feels lifeless in your chest. Because deep down you know, you weren't just educated, you were conditioned. Conditioned to seek gold stars instead of real purpose. To chase validation instead of vision. To comply instead of confront. To avoid failure instead of explore meaning. And here's the truth, you've been dancing around. Your soul is not tired because you're lazy. It's tired because you've spent years performing for approval instead of living for truth. You want to know why you second-guess yourself. Why you feel anxious when you try to slow down. Because the system taught you that rest is weakness, that stillness is failure. It didn't just steal your attention. It stole your permission to be slow, to be unsure, to be human. You became fluent in performance, but illiterate in presence. You were taught to raise your hand for permission. And now you wait for someone to approve your truth. You learned to take notes, but never learned how to notice what your soul is actually saying. You became so good at passing their tests. You forgot to ask your own questions. Jung understood this deeply. He said, in school we are taught everything except the most essential thing to know ourselves. And without that knowledge, you drift. You achieve, but you don't arrive. You produce, but you don't connect. You succeed, but you don't feel successful. Because success without soul is just performance with a price tag. So now you're standing in the middle of your life, surrounded by noise, deadlines, opinions, expectations. And underneath it all, there's one quiet voice asking, is this even me? That voice, that's your soul. It's the part of you that's never been in a classroom, never been on a transcript. It doesn't care about your GPA. It cares about your peace. It doesn't want you to get an A. It wants you to feel alive. But here's the hard part. It's not going to scream for your attention. It's going to whisper. And if you've been trained to only listen to applause, you'll miss it every time. So ask yourself, what if the system that gave you your pride also gave you your paralysis? What if the same structure that helped you succeed is the one that taught you to betray yourself for approval? What if your high-functioning anxiety is just the shadow of a soul that's never been allowed to rest? You didn't choose this conditioning, but you can confront it. You can stop equating silence with laziness. You can stop interpreting discomfort as failure. You can stop waiting for someone to hand you your permission slip to be real. You are not here to replicate. You are here to remember, not to perform, but to become, not to pass another test, but to finally pass the mirror and recognize yourself. The system taught you how to climb the ladder. Jung is here to remind you why you're climbing in the first place. This is not rebellion, it's remembrance. This is not dropping out, it's waking up. Your soul is not missing, it's just been muted by the noise of performance. And now it's your turn to turn down the noise. Because this isn't a dress rehearsal, this is your life. And your life doesn't need more applause. It needs more alignment. Say it to yourself now. I wasn't educated. I was programmed. And I'm done performing. And now that you've said it, now that you've named it, you can begin to see it. You begin to see how it plays out in the smallest details. You overthink every message before you send it. You draft and redraft a simple reply because you're afraid of being misunderstood. You say yes to invitations you dread. You smile when you want to say stop. You keep talking when silence would honor you more. You've learned to apologize for your truth. You've learned to shrink your desires so others feel comfortable. You've learned to translate your intuition into something more palatable, more professional, more polite, more acceptable. But at what cost? That constant self-editing is psychic drain. Jung would call it a misuse of your psychic energy, the core fuel of your inner life. Instead of channeling your energy toward becoming whole, you spend it managing impressions, avoiding judgment, anticipating reactions. You're not burnt out because you're doing too little. You're burnt out because you've been doing too much of what doesn't feed your soul. Let's break the illusion. You think overworking makes you strong. No, it makes you avoidant. Avoidant of stillness. Avoidant of emptiness. Avoidant of the fear that if you stop performing, there might be nothing left. But that's a lie. There's more of you waiting beneath the mask, not less. There's wisdom underneath the persona. There's depth beneath the approval. Carl Jung named this too. The shadow. The parts of yourself you hide, repress, or deny. Not because they're bad, but because they didn't fit the curriculum. Your anger, suppressed. Your sadness, silenced. Your longing for meaning, laughed off as idealism. You didn't learn to process those emotions. You learned to pathologize them. You weren't taught how to hold space for your depth. You were told to focus and move on. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. It leaks out. It shows up in anxiety, in self-sabotage, in quiet resentment, in explosive reactions you can't explain. You snap at someone you love. You ghost people without knowing why. You suddenly cancel everything, craving solitude you can't name. That's not weakness. That's the shadow crying for integration. And integration is not therapy speak. It's soul speak. It's how you reclaim all the parts of you that were cut off to make you successful. The messy parts, the angry parts, the wild, creative, unexplainable parts. You were taught to be useful. Jung is asking you to be whole. You learn to perform for the light. He's asking you to explore the dark. Because only when you know your shadow can you stop projecting it onto others. Only when you own your fear can you stop living under its influence. Only when you stop outsourcing your worth can you come home to yourself. Let's talk about projection. Another key Jungian concept. When you don't deal with your inner world, you cast it out onto the people around you. You don't feel secure in who you are, so you idolize those who do. You haven't owned your anger, so you vilify others who express theirs. You reject your desires, so you resent the people who go after theirs. You judge what you've never allowed yourself to feel. And this is how you lose even more energy, by fighting your own reflection in others, by trying to control what triggers you, instead of asking, what part of me is unhealed? The modern education system didn't give you tools for that question. It gave you rubrics, rankings, rehearsals, but no reflection. So now it's your job to re-educate yourself, not with more information, but with introspection. not with more answers, but with better questions. What part of you did you bury to be liked? What truth have you been scared to say out loud? Where have you been living as a performance instead of a person? This is the real curriculum, and it's not taught, it's lived. You can't schedule it into a semester. You can't cram it the night before. You can't Google your way to it. You have to feel it, face it, feed it. You have to stop treating your soul like an extracurricular. You want to feel peace, then stop betraying your truth. You want to feel grounded, then stop outsourcing your validation. You want to feel alive, then stop numbing with productivity. Look around. You live in a culture that praises overexertion and mocks self-reflection, that confuses activity with progress, that rewards noise and ignores nuance. But your soul, it speaks in nuance, it speaks in silence, it speaks in the tension between what you're doing and who you're becoming. And if you don't learn to listen, you'll wake up successful, admired, and completely disconnected. The good news, you can reclaim yourself. You can reclaim your energy from the people and patterns that drain it. You can reclaim your voice from the persona that silenced it. You can reclaim your soul from the scripts that never belonged to you. You don't need to burn everything down. You just need to stop dimming the light inside. Say this to yourself and mean it. I don't owe my energy to everyone. I'm not reacting. I'm choosing. I protect my peace like it's sacred. Because it is. Your peace is not a luxury. It's your compass. Your boundary is not a wall, it's your truth line. And your stillness is not an absence, it's your access point to wisdom. Stop apologizing for needing space. Stop explaining your silence. Stop justifying your no. This isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's time to reallocate your energy from fitting in to waking up. And here's the final truth. You don't owe the world your performance, you owe yourself your presence. Now that you've seen it, the conditioning, the drain, the disconnection, it's time to shift. This is where you stop identifying with the version of you that was built to please. This is where you stop rehearsing who you're supposed to be and start remembering who you are. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole, not perfect, not polished, whole. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming the parts you lost, trying to become what the world rewarded. And it starts here, in the quiet decision to stop performing and start participating in your own truth. Individuation is not about rejecting the world. It's about no longer letting the world dictate who you are. You can still show up, still succeed, still serve, but you do it from a rooted self, not a reactive mask. So let's name what your education never taught you. It didn't teach you how to say no without guilt. It didn't teach you that discomfort isn't danger. It's growth. It didn't teach you that solitude is not loneliness. It's power. It didn't teach you how to think for yourself, only how to repeat what was safe. You were trained to speak in bullet points, not emotions, to write essays, not express boundaries, to prepare answers, not ask deeper questions. You know how to meet deadlines. Now it's time to meet yourself. And that meeting will not be tidy. It will be humbling, honest, maybe even a little terrifying. Because when you remove the mask, you confront the parts of you that have been waiting in silence. Your intuition, your desire, your suppressed anger, your joy that no longer wants to be negotiated. You can feel them now, can't you? That deep inner yes you've been too afraid to follow. That lingering no you've kept swallowing. That creative idea you keep pushing aside because it doesn't make sense. That wild hunger for something more honest, more soulful, more you. That's not a crisis. That's your self-awakening. And here's what's wild. The life you've built to impress others may not be able to hold the truth of who you really are. But that's okay. Let it stretch. Let it crack. Let it reshape. The world you built from your persona will resist the self. You'll feel friction. People might say you've changed. Let them. Because you have. You're no longer available for self-betrayal. You're no longer selling out your peace for praise. You're no longer tolerating a system that feeds your productivity but starves your presence. You're not here to be efficient. You're here to be alive. So what does that look like? In real life, It looks like not answering that message right away and sitting with your discomfort instead. It looks like saying no, thank you, without explaining why. It looks like blocking off your calendar for nothing and honoring that nothing like it's a sacred ritual. It looks like creating without seeking applause. It looks like disappointing others so you stop disappointing yourself. It looks like this: I don't chase clarity, I create it by cutting what's not true. I don't dilute my truth to be digestible. I don't ask for permission to breathe. You don't need a dramatic exit. You need a consistent return to yourself. You can still live in the world, still send emails, still show up to work, but now you do it with intention. Now you pause before you agree. Now you breathe before you react. Now you ask, is this coming from my persona or my truth? That's the Jungian lens. Every interaction is a chance to integrate. Every emotion is an invitation to investigate. Every yes you give is a vote for the life you're choosing. So start casting better votes. Choose boundaries over burnout. Choose honesty over harmony. Choose depth over decoration. Choose silence over small talk. Choose the mirror over the mask. Because the longer you wear the mask, the more you forget you're wearing one. But the moment you put it down, even just a little, you remember, you're not here to perform. You're here to participate in your own becoming. And let's be honest, the system doesn't want you whole. It wants you useful, predictable, profitable. But your soul, it wants something else. It wants rest. It wants clarity. It wants freedom. And freedom isn't found in escaping your responsibilities. It's found in refusing to abandon yourself to fulfill them. Say this to yourself: I am not a brand. I am not a mask. I am not a product. I am not my LinkedIn headline, my follower count, or my inbox. I am a living, breathing, feeling, becoming human being. And I give myself permission to act like it. You weren't taught this. So now you teach it to yourself. You slow down. You listen in. You show up, not perfectly, not dramatically, but truly. That's the shift. That's the turn. That's individuation in motion. Now comes the reset. Not just mentally, but practically. Because insight without action is just another form of escape. You've seen the pattern. You've felt the cost. Now it's time to move, to do one thing differently. Today, let's root this in your actual life. Right now, your phone is probably full of unread messages, notifications blinking like tiny demands. Someone is expecting a reply. A task is waiting. A decision you've been postponing is still sitting in your head like a weight. But ask yourself, which of those deserve your energy? And which are just echoes of the performance loop? Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you vote for a version of yourself you're trying to outgrow. Every time you reply out of guilt instead of clarity, you reinforce the belief that you are responsible for how everyone feels. Every time you speed up just because others are running, you abandon your own rhythm, and the cost is your peace, your clarity, your life. Why are you still available to everyone but yourself? Why do you ghost your soul to answer every ping? Why are you still measuring your value by how productive you look, how liked you are, how little you rest? This isn't drama. This is data. Your nervous system is telling you, we can't live like this anymore. So listen, Carl Jung didn't just talk about the shadow and the persona as abstract concepts. He saw them as living realities, patterns that either enslave you or awaken you. And the only way to stop being unconsciously controlled by them is to confront them. In action. Not next week. Not after the next burnout. Now, you want to reclaim your soul, start here. Say no today. Without a 5-paragraph explanation, just no, thank you. That's enough. Let one message wait. Let the anxiety rise. And then watch it pass. Unfollow one voice that drowns out your own. Clear one input from your feed that confuses your inner compass. And if you're brave, block off 1 hour this week where nothing is allowed in. No phone, no plans, no performance, just presence. Sit there, breathe there, feel the discomfort, and trust it's a doorway. not a trap. Your wholeness is not hidden behind another task. It's waiting behind your willingness to stop. Stop performing. Stop pleasing. Stop outsourcing your identity. You want to be sovereign? Then stop giving your energy to systems that drain you. You want to be authentic? Then stop negotiating your truth to be digestible. You want to live with purpose? Then stop seeking it in places where your soul doesn't feel safe. The truth is, no one's coming to rescue you from the persona they taught you to build. That's your job. And it doesn't require drama. It requires discipline. The discipline to pause, to listen in, to choose again. Even when the old pattern begs for your attention, say this clearly. I am not confused. I've just been conditioned. I am not broken. I've just been overtrained to betray myself. I don't need more input. I need more inner authority. That's what Jung meant by reclaiming the self, becoming the central conscious director of your own life, not ruled by fear, not split between masks, not living on autopilot. You become the one who chooses. And that choice begins with presence, because presence is power. When you are present, you stop reacting and start responding. When you are present, your boundaries sharpen. When you are present, your intuition becomes loud again. When you are present, your soul becomes visible, not just to you but to the world. And the world needs that version of you, not the polished one, not the praised one, the present one, the rooted one, the real one. So ask yourself one final question. What would it look like to protect your peace like it's sacred? Maybe it looks like walking away from the noise. Maybe it looks like rethinking the metrics of your worth. Maybe it looks like deleting one app, saying one no, or allowing one day of slowness without guilt. Whatever it is, do it today, not because it's convenient, but because your soul is done waiting. You've spent years mastering the art of fitting in. Now it's time to master the courage to break out. You are not a product of your resume. You are not the sum of your replies. You are not the puppet of your programming. You are a sovereign being. And the moment you stop performing, the moment you remember, the world around you begins to shift. You don't need more applause. You need more alignment. You don't need another achievement. You need actual presence. You don't need permission to be who you are. You just need the courage to stop being who you're not. So let this be the moment. The break in the pattern. The breath between the demands. The bold, quiet choice to come back home. To yourself. Because your soul is not missing. It's just waiting for you to stop performing and start listening. Class is dismissed. Real life begins.